Thank you.
Okay. All right, welcome everyone. Glad we got the band back. Nice that we're around this table in this room and online together. The late March meeting of the Conservation Commission. Hey, come on in. No, we just got started because we had some connection issues.
No worries.
You're right on time.
I guess so.
Jamie, would you call attendance?
Sure. Starting in the room, Maggie.
Here.
Kathleen.
Here.
Randy.
Here.
Cressy.
Here.
Jessica.
Here.
Bennett.
Here.
And online Abel.
Here,
Thank you.
well, but
You're here
Yeah.
as much as that works.
And I'd like to welcome especially our newest commissioner, Cressy.
Hi.
You want to say a few words? And we're really glad that you're going to be joining us.
Oh, yeah, no, it's really exciting to be on the commission. I'm looking forward to contribute as much as I can and looking forward to be part of the band.
Excellent, good. We always welcome good, passionate, and knowledgeable residents to join us. Thank you. And we have a few guests, which will have time for public comment shortly. Welcome. But at first I want to begin our meeting by honoring the indigenous people who were the original stewards of this land. The Wabanaki people, including the Waskawag people who once lived here in what is now Scarborough, who cared for these lands and waters with deep respect for generations. This land is unceded, and the struggles over water rights, territorial boundaries, and the protection of sacred sites continue to this day. Our work to protect these lands and waters reflects a commitment to shared stewardship, an acknowledgement that land is not just something we own, but something we are entrusted with. This responsibility aligns with the enduring values of the Wabanaki people, who remind us that caring for land and water ensures the well-being of all who rely on them. So let's carry this understanding forward, knowing that protecting this land reflects principles of respect and care that indigenous people have upheld for centuries. So thank you, Jamie, for sending around, again, excellent minutes from our December meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so knew.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Jessica. Jamie, any discussion?
I have
Or
actually
corrections?
one
Yep.
minor correction.
Great, thank you.
I'm not listed as attendee, but I was there.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
we'll get that up there. Thank you very much, Ben.
Yep.
Yep. So we're voting on the minutes. Maggie,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Abel.
yes,
Thank you.
All right, so I want to just review the agenda tonight. I'm gonna propose a few changes in the order of the agenda. It's because the first part under old business is goal setting, which includes reviewing the town council goals. And our town council liaison is in another meeting right now, down the hall. So I'd like to hold off on that until she's able to join us, which should be a little bit later this evening. And for that reason, I'd like to put new business first and old business second. And then if we need to, once we get to old business, we'll go in the order of 3, 2, 1. Does everyone understand what I mean? So we'll hear first planning board submittals, then talk about tree protection, and then goal setting. But I'm proposing we begin with new business on the stream protection overlay district, and then discussing chair and vice chair positions, and then we'll go through the usual updates. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
Cool. So we're at the part where we open to public comment. I welcome our guests to introduce themselves and have anything that you want to share or say.
Yeah, so I'm Tim and this is my wife Sarah.
Hi.
But we're here representing Morris Family Farm. We're local to Oak Hill.
Great. did you want to make any comment or say,
Okay,
any
sorry,
address
yeah,
us? Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to do all introductions or just have us go, but yeah, I'd love to, yeah, so just to kind of bird's eye overview of what we do, what we're hoping to do, so I'm a stay-at-home dad. During the week, I'm a photographer by trade, Monday through Friday, I'm home with my 2 girls and soon to be 3. And we ran an organic farm when we lived in Waterboro, previously moved to Scarborough, but we had issues out there. The soil wasn't ideal for what we were doing. The lot was extremely hilly. It wasn't really set up well. What we were trying to do, and we had some other concerns too. We wanted to move to Scarborough was always a dream. So we wanted to be to begin with.
Mhm.
Started our journey out there, and when we started having kids, we came to this community. There's a lot we really respect about this town, the schools, the efforts through conservation, the Scarborough Land Trust, all the parks and such. I mean, my girls and I are out there walking these kind of trails frequently, so moving to Scarborough, we kind of came here and we knew the farm vision was going to change. So we had just gotten our organic cert out in Waterboro, really excited about that. And for anyone not familiar with the organic certification process, there's a lot in there beyond just what to use for pesticides. A lot of the process revolves around responsible land use, conservation, sustainability, those kind of things are core tenets of the MOFGA organic certification in our state. Which is something that we're extremely passionate about, and it's why we sought the organic certification to begin with out there. When we came to Scarborough, we knew the vision would have to change. We were on more land in Waterboro. When we moved here, we're now on a 1/4 acre. We're in town. We live on Aslan Drive, which for anyone not familiar is like a half mile that way. And it's a densely populated little community. So the house needed a lot of work, so we started with that, like, let's get the house livable. And now that we've gotten that accomplished, we're ready to bring the farm back to life. And we've fallen in love with this idea of the urban micro farm, which does a lot of great things for communities. It brings local food in. So a big part of our food system nationally is the amount of miles a tomato has to travel to get to your shelves at Hanford. You can talk to Matt, the produce manager here in Oak Hill. He'll tell you all about it, how far the produce has to travel to physically get here. And that generates a lot of waste. There's a lot of issues with that. So a big part of what we're excited about doing is bringing that more locally here to Scarborough. Also just setting a precedence on using our land responsibly. So when we moved into our lot, it was a house, mostly dead grass. The land had been pretty stripped of nutrients. An overgrown brush area, a dilapidated shed, and more dead grass. And overgrown invasive plants, just littered with invasive plants. Sarah can tell you more about exactly which ones we had, but like this year, our goal is to remove the last Bradford pear trees. We're getting those out of there. A big part of Tree City USA, I was a Saco resident for a while, so I'm slightly familiar with it from when Saco did their initiatives. Bringing in responsible trees. It's not just about having trees, it's so getting rid of these invasive species. So that's a big part of what we're trying to do. And then just showing to using the land responsibly. So minimizing, I've got small children that play. So grass is one of those great play surfaces. So we're going to maintain a small part in our backyard, but our front yard was just this giant, barren fields basically. And in order to grow grass, you have to water it, right? So I put in an irrigation system, and last year I was standing out there marveling the irrigation system working and doing its job and, watering the grass. I'm like, wow, we're just wasting this precious, precious resource on what? Like something that looks ornamental and green. It's not doing anything. My kids don't play in my front yard. People drive by it, but it doesn't help anyone. So getting the farm back up and running. First, we started by removing all the invasive plants and brush that was next to our garage. And that was field number 1. So that got put in last year. This year, field number 2 is going in front of the house. So we're getting rid of 70%, I'd say, of that grass to begin with, and it's getting replaced with vegetable gardens. We want to be selling the produce here in Scarborough, so I picked up a 3-wheeled bike. So we can peddle the produce to the farmer's market here at Town Hall, and again, Oak Hill Hannaford has been expressed really, really strong interest in having, it doesn't get much more local than that. A guy on a bike from a half-mile away with your tomatoes. So we're working to bring that in. The other big tenet of what we're doing is bees. We're bringing in honeybees. I'm a veteran. I'm taking part in the Hives to Hero program right now. And in case anyone hasn't seen it on the news, this winter we faced one of the most catastrophic bee losses in our nation's history. It's astronomical. The almond crop is going to struggle. We're going to have a lot of problems this year. So to be part of the positive change, we're working to help keep bees, and full disclosure, the bees are mostly for my 3-year-old. She, some reason, fell in love with them over the winter, and I thought it was nuts. I don't particularly care for bees. And then we looked into it, and it's they're an amazing creature, and what they can do for our food supply is amazing. I'm not going to pretend like beekeeping is a conservation measure, but what it can do to help keep our food local and keep it producing, the bees were going to be able to potentially triple food output of not only my gardens, but any other local gardens here in Scarborough. So to kind of bring this back to what we're looking for from this committee, in the town of Scarborough, in order to sell produce off of your lot, you have to be considered commercial ag. Sarah can speak more to the exact, she knows the ordinances inside and out. But we're zoned R2, so we can set up a farm stand on our lot. The problem with that is, if you guys are familiar with Aslan Drive, it's a loop street. And the last thing anyone who lives on a loop street wants is more traffic. And I don't want people driving to me. I want to bring my produce to where they're already going. I don't want to create any more traffic. The last thing we want are more cars on the road. So what we did was we filed a use exemption with the zoning board of appeals, and we went in last month and we got tabled. So the zoning board of appeals believes that these are a public safety hazard. We have a binder here if anyone wants to take a look. It's got 140 pages of information that say otherwise. My wife has looked up case law. We reached out to the Scarborough Police. They've conclusively said that the Scarborough Police has not had a report of bees related issues in the last 2 years, 3 years, which is as far back as they were wanting to look, which it was honestly very lucky that they wanted to go back that far, because they had to manually search it since they don't have a bee as a code in their system, because they're not an issue. For just a quick overview of honeybee, they're non-aggressive. Particularly the type of bees we're getting. We source bees specifically that are gentle. When you think of bee stings, usually people are actually thinking of wasps. Wasps are carnivorous. The Maine state apiarist has told us that any instance she's aware of where they've gone into legal issues with these, it's usually she shows up and it's a giant wasp nest. It's not a honeybee that's causing the problem. We had some concerns from our neighborhood. There were 3 houses out of 44 that had concerns. We did go talk to the other 41. I was able to reach most of those at this point. I think there's 2 houses I haven't been able to get to. Everyone else is in support of this measure. So what we're looking for from the Conservation Committee is to just help us with the support. So we're going back in front of Town Council. We're going back in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals on April 9th. And what we need to show is public support. What we need to show is that people aren't concerned that we're causing a problem, and that the community has our back. There's also some concerns about bringing small scale farming into this town, specifically our neighborhood. Some of our neighbors have concerns it's going to devalue their properties. Some people have concerns about just general agriculture. And really what we're doing is we're having vegetable gardens just bigger. And then we're just taking that produce off site and responsibly using more of the land. You know, people like the people who wrote in and had concerns about the farm, like that 1950s It's a big grass front lawn with a couple non-native shrubs, some non-native trees, a paved driveway, and nothing else. Maybe a couple flowers that will be also non-native,
I don't
so
think they liked people either. To be fair.
I didn't say that.
I did.
So thank you for coming in and
but-
asking for this, and I just want to clarify, if you could say, what's before the zoning board of appeals? Is it for bees, or is it for traffic, or is it for?
Don't actually, I'm the planning director, so I'm Brian's boss.
Oh, good to
And
Oh.
See,
Lovely.
I left, I stayed for the first part of that meeting and then I left, but we don't actually regulate or have the right to regulate bees in the town, and we don't have any regulations. We were missing our chair of the Board of Appeals group that evening, and I think we will have probably a better situation when you go back. I think we got a little lost on personal reflection on maybe a bee sting here or there, and it was a really unfortunate meeting, I would say.
So it's about bees, it's not
No,
about. the
theirs is not about.
cars going
No,
through.
all they're asking for
parking.
is for commercial agricultural use in a residential, because they want to take the produce off. They could
Okay.
do exactly what they're doing and have multiple beehives in their backyard without a peep from the town if they weren't trying to sell it at the farmer's
Okay,
market. So
got
that's all.
If there's no bee ordinance, they can't do it.
There's no bees.
We have no,
Mentioned
That's
anywhere in the
town has
ordinances.
no.
No.
And have we, thank you for coming, we do need to have our regular business.
Yeah,
But how is this like, anything, is there anything similar come before zoning board of appeals around commercial ag?
I don't think, I'd have to ask Brian, I'm sure he's had some smaller things. Usually these would be like farm.
So
stands
there
or
is,
something.
there is a small farm in my neighborhood, that was,
Didn't go through.
no, got shot down.
Um,
Because the neighbors all cared about the traffic coming to their,
Yeah.
because they wanted to do a CSA,
mhm.
so they were.
Former member.
Yeah,
Member of the
so-
commission,
yeah,
yeah.
so, and it's unfortunate because they have a beautiful little farm back there. And they were just shot down, so I do,
That was more the selling of it. Like she
Yes.
was able to farm her land, but she wasn't able to
To-
have a farm stand.
right there, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't think but if you're planning, you'll avoid, if you're gonna be selling it at the farmer's market. And not have people coming to your, to your home, to the front garden, it shouldn't be, I don't mean, hopefully it'll go through.
So thank you for your time and thinking about the Conservation Commission tonight, and keep us posted, and appreciate and thank you for the work that you're doing, all the good care that you have for the environment. I do need to move the meeting on, but I really appreciate it, and feel free to stay as well. It sounds like you've got some, I hope helpful information just briefly from us. And Andrew, welcome.
Andrew Mackey,
Again.
Executive Director of the Scarborough Land Trust. I will try to keep things short, but I just want to tell you about some upcoming programs and events. I think it's 9 land trusts now got together to screen a film called A Piece of Forest. It's PEACE. It's going to be at Hannaford Hall, 88 Bedford Street in Portland on Saturday. There's still tickets available. I think the tickets are $10 each. Could be wrong about that. 7 o'clock. If you're interested. It's billed as a quiet film. So there's not a lot of sound, but it was all filmed in Maine. And it's basically a wildlife film. So it should be pretty interesting. If anyone's interested on Sunday, I don't have the time yet. We're still nailing that down. We're gonna be out at Fuller Farm picking up dog poop. Unfortunately, a lot of people with the snow don't go traipsing after and pick up their dog poop as much. And so it does build up over the winter, and when the snow goes, it's all visible. So if you're interested, just shoot me an email. Just quickly. On April 22nd, Earth Day, we're having Gary Fish back about sustainable landscapes. We did that program last fall and it was very popular. So we're doing it again. I believe that's at public safety. And let's see. On April 15th, we have another film called Remember Winter that's going to be at the Scarborough Public Library at 6 p.m. On April 17th, there's going to be a program. We just reserved the room at the middle school cafeteria, I believe, called Addressing Environmental Challenges to Wildlife Through Collaborative Conservation Research. And that's by one of the researchers at BRI. So if you're interested in that. And then the marsh cleanup is April 26th. If you're interested, reach out to Linda at Maine Audubon. We're a partner in that effort, as are several other groups. And we're always looking for people to help with that cleanup. There's going to be a star party out at Fuller Farm on April 26th at 7 p.m. All these things are on our website too under events. Our annual spring cleanup is May 3rd. And we work at several properties. We're always looking for volunteers, and we do more than just cleaning up trash. We spread wood chips, we cut back invasives, all sorts of things depending on what property it is. And I know I'm missing stuff. I want to keep it short. On May 8th, we actually have a program called the Buzz on Bees. So we want to learn more about, especially our native bees. I don't think I have a location for that yet, but May 8th, 6 o'clock. I think that's where I'll leave it. Our native plant sale, of course, is May 31st out at Broad Turn Farm. Going to start at 8 in the morning, and we will be doing pre-sales for anyone. Just keep looking at our website.
Nice,
So thank you.
thank you. Tis the season, eh? We still haven't gotten through all the snow yet, but we're heating up. More people coming out on trails. Good, thank you very much, Andrew. All right, so let's go, unless there are other comments or questions from folks or our guests. Thanks, let's go to new business. So the first is review proposed updates to the stream protection overlay district.
Yeah, let me just share my screen real quick.
I think I wanted to sit here.
Yeah.
So, as part of our shoreline zoning ordinance, we have additional stream protections in our stream protection overlay districts. There's actually two. We're looking at the first stream protection overlay district, or changes to the stream protection one. And so this basically we're proposing this as part of a requirement through our MS4 permit, our stormwater permit, where as part of our stormwater management plan, we had indicated that we were going to extend stream protection to Phillips Brook, or additional stream protection to Phillips Brook, which is one of Scarborough's urban impaired streams. So it's a stream that is not meeting its state designated water quality classifications. And while we're going through this process, we also wanted to take another look at the Red Brook stream protections. Only a portion of Red Brook is currently protected with stream protection overlay. So we are proposing extending it to the full length of Red Brook. And so the information that was in the packet for this evening, the blue underlined text is what's being added. Essentially, for any stream in Scarborough, if it gets added to Maine DEP's impaired list, which is the 303D list as part of the integrated water quality and assessment report, it would automatically be added to the town's stream protection overlay district, which would afford it additional protection in addition to stormland or shoreline zone.
Thank you.
So, and there are maps in here too to kind of show the areas that would be affected with this. So, this is Red Brook. What is outlined in blue is the current stream protection. It ends just beyond New Road. So this is really the more developed area of the Red Brook watershed. So we're proposing to extend stream protection in up to the headwaters essentially. Near Smiling Hill Farm. And this is Phillips Brook, as I mentioned. None of Phillips Brook is currently in stream protection, so this is down in the Dunstan Corner area. This is Broadtown Road. So looking at both branches of Phillips Brook to where it goes into Scarborough Marsh.
A question, when you, what does stream protection involve? What changes would that involve?
So, it would, add limitations to development within 70. So this would be adding, basically an additional 75-foot setback, and restrictions within that setback. And the setback is measured from mean high water,
Okay,
out 75 feet. So it's not the center of the stream channel. It's actually, from essentially
so
within.
neighboring properties would have to have that 75-foot setback.
Yeah, so, obviously this would not be retroactive. It would just apply to any, new
New
proposed development coming forward.
So in this case, this is an already a highly developed area, so it's likely to have much of impact.
So there are portions of this, oh gosh, what's happening with my, there we go. There are portions of this watershed that are highly developed, but if we go back and look at like Red Brook, for example, this could have had implications for like the turnpike connector and things like that.
Okay.
So thinking ahead to, you know, what may be coming in the future out in that area of town, it would be good to have these protections in place now.
But for Phillips Brook.
And Phillips Brook, it is, it's a lot of residential development. And then obviously around Dunstan Corner, some commercial development. There are a couple larger parcels that are undeveloped that this would impact, but kind of the smaller residential parcels would have minimal impact until they want.
Is Smiling Hill Farm in Gorham or Scarborough?
Actually in Westbrook.
Oh.
The farm itself is in Westbrook. They do have own property in Scarborough as well.
Okay. So did you have to get this accomplished, did you have to have agreements with Westbrook or
No, this is only within Scarborough.
this is only within Scarborough?
And this is just proposed at this point, so this is the first step.
Can you outline the process?
Yeah,
please?
so typically we would go through the ordinance committee, but we are bringing this to, it's scheduled to go before the planning board for a public hearing in April. And then it will go to town council for their review process. It's a fairly straightforward update to the shoreline zoning ordinance. And we also, it's a requirement of our stormwater permit. So at least for Phillips Brook, we're required to do it, and it's a good thing to do for Red Brook also because of future development potential out in that portion of the watershed. And Autumn, you can jump in at any time if you want.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Sorry, who's bringing it to planning?
Staff will be bringing it forward.
Okay, and then planning brings it to town council.
Staff will also be bringing it to town
Okay.
council. Planning board will just provide their, like an advisory opinion.
Got it.
On it. And with our past ordinances, it's gone to town council first before planning board. With a zoning update, we do it a little bit differently because, all of the, abutters need to be notified. And so there will be, that notification process happens through planning board, and there will be a public hearing both at planning board and at town council. for
Okay.
this.
Thanks.
Do you have a date for the planning?
April 22nd.
Bennett?
My question is really just kind of, what is it that we need to discuss? Because I think majority of us, so I speak for you guys, would be in favor of these setbacks. And some of them are already required. Are we just discussing whether or not we support the Red Brook?
Essentially,
Okay,
oh, well,
That's kinda
we're
what I'm
getting,
wondering.
kind of getting the groups. Essentially getting an opinion from this group, either, you know. Do you support this? Is there something else we should be thinking of? We're trying to keep it fairly straightforward and streamlined, because it is a permit requirement that, we're working against a deadline
Right.
to get it in place. And so not necessarily changing any requirements within the stream protection overlay district itself, but changing, essentially adding, areas where it applies.
Got it.
So this is not a change, so do you anticipate a huge groundswell of?
We hope not, but it's always a possibility.
We'll have to send out, when we send out the notification, we'll be really careful to let people know exactly what it is and what it really means to their property. There's tables with what you can and cannot do. We'll have to summarize that. We'll still going to get quite a few,
I'm just thinking of a 25-foot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, that- yeah,
Developers that will also go and.
yeah, anyone that has a parcel that abuts the streams will be notified that this, change is proposed.
And we came up with 75,
That's what is currently in the
Okay.
ordinance.
all right.
So would it help for the commission to have a memo to somebody? Okay, to the town council?
Probably to town council, even though it is gonna go to planning board first.
Okay,
and full disclosure, we would normally take this to ordinance committee, but they canceled the April meeting, so we were on a time crunch, and so we asked if we could use you all as our advisory
see.
group before the next step, and it seemed reasonable. So that clears
Okay.
it up for you.
Okay.
We're not trying to skip something. We're
Yeah,
just-
okay.
is, I can't see able, but is anyone opposed to us writing a support memo? Or a memo in support? Any discussion of what we want to make sure is in there? I mean, we could work one up and, yes, go
My
ahead.
only thoughts are there any other watersheds that we could try and include at the same time?
So,
What might be included?
the way we wrote it, will essentially make it easier to add more watersheds in the future if they get listed by, Maine DEP as being impaired. And I think for this first step, we want to keep it simple, because this is what we're required to do. And so get the requirement through, and then we can maybe go back and take a look at if other streams should have additional coverage as well. I will say, most of our streams, a lot of our streams are already part of stream protection overlay. It was really surprising that Phillips Brook wasn't, since it is an impaired stream. And the stream protection overlay district was put in place probably at least 15 or 20 years ago, and none of the staff that were there when that happened are still here. So we don't know kind of what the impetus was for this was, or why Phillips Brook was left off, or anything like that. So it's really working to correct that oversight, and then also extending protections in Red Brook. And so hopefully, the way that it's worded, I mean, we're hoping that we don't have additional streams listed as impaired in Scarborough, but if they are, this should be able to automatically trigger that they be added to the overlay district if they're not already.
Good.
Okay, looks like we're all in agreement. We're gonna write a memo of support. That's great. The next order of new business is discuss chair and vice chair positions. I think earlier drafts were elect chair and vice chair. And I thought before we do that, I just wanted to have an open discussion, and sort of say like where we are. So, I love having served as chair, and I'm also open to somebody else stepping into this role. It will not be Jessica, who is our current vice chair, and I'll give her a moment in a second.
At Jessica's request, not Randy's.
I know. It will not be Jessica. So why am I bringing it in? She's already said.
Yeah, she's
So-
declined.
I just wanted to express this is a great way to serve the commission in a new way. It's really wonderful to work with Jamie and staff in serving as chair. And so I would welcome anyone to talk with me about your interest in serving as chair, or you can keep quiet till next month when we do elections. I think I'll just give the floor to Jessica to share your plans as well.
Yes, so as you know, I'm also the chair of the Parks and Conservation Land Board. And we have a big year ahead of us. With the passage of the most recent $6 million land bond, we're anticipating much more, applications for, conservation funding. But also, we're doing a lot of, process and evaluation updates to incorporate the open space plan, the vulnerability assessment. And as many other committees, are facing folks who are term limited out, that committee in particular is going to lose a lot of folks who've been on for 20+ years. So we have to bank a lot of institutional knowledge. So I am at capacity with the upcoming year. So I don't think it's fair to the Conservation Commission for me to continue to serve as vice chair or chair. And it's also possible the commission would be better served by someone filling my seat who could devote more time and attention, because I really won't have that this year.
Thank you, Jessica. And just a review of terms, because now, remind me, if you've served 2 terms, there really is no rollover. There's a.
You can serve
there's a
3.
If you've served 3 terms, there's
chair.
no, or no, as member,
As
as
member.
commissioner,
And that's how long?
as full
3
commissioner.
years.
3
years.
Yeah,
Three
3
3-year terms.
3-year terms, and then you need a 1-year break before you're eligible to reapply. We've got 3 people who have a term of 2025. That's Maggie, Pete, and Kathleen. Pete is on his 23rd term.
Yeah, he will term out at the end
Yeah,
of this year.
so that this is sort of like sharing the lay of the land.
So I will, my first
Serve
term
your-
is finished at the
yeah.
end of 25.
I think that's your.
Yes, but I think you were filling a vacancy, so you're gonna get some bonus time if you continue on, because your first term was not a full 3 years.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
Nice. And
But
then
you were finishing
you'll
out a term that
renew.
ended in
I mean, you'll
2025.
have the opportunity to renew, which we hope you say.
And same with
yes.
Kathleen, because Kathleen hasn't been with us for 3 years either,
Right.
so you guys get bonus time.
Not long.
And then, we recently expanded to have 2 alternates. So when we have a vacancy on the primary commissioners, then the alternates will move to voting members, full voting members. So that just sort of gives the lay of the land. We have the vice chair position that is going to be open. We would love to have somebody raise your hand and say, yeah, I'd be willing to serve in that way, and then know that I welcome anybody who's interested in serving as chair, ask me questions, and it's a great way to serve.
Are you willing to continue?
I would love to see somebody else, honestly, step in. But
But you're not going.
yeah, I'm not going to.
Okay.
But yeah, so I would love to have a conversation with anybody who's interested. We are going to have elections of this commission next month.
Could you or
or
either
next
of
time we
you
meet.
say something about what it entails to do that role?
You mostly see it
Okay.
when you're here, which is facilitating the meeting, keeping us on time, and coordinating with Jamie on what the agenda items are. And then, yeah, sorting out, we'll be doing goal setting, so sorting that out, and
And the vice chair is really just to step in if you can't make it, if the chair can't make it.
yeah, Jessica and I both are part of the conversation to develop the monthly agenda.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, she's available to step in if I can't chair. Okay, welcome.
So it's really just adding thoughts to the agenda, and then again.
Thank you.
Being prepared to and willing to facilitate meetings.
Yeah.
If need be.
And sometimes you guys have also led efforts before the town council, if you're
Right.
advocating for certain ordinances or zoning decisions before the town council, you do, obviously it's
Right.
setback, so.
Yeah, there's some. I suppose there's some extra gravitas by saying you're chair of the commission if you're speaking before town council.
But
Not
you're
that it
relaying
moves
the
people.
position of the the commission, not your personal.
Right, yes.
I'm in the middle of a good conversation.
Yeah.
What did I just walk in on? We're just discussing chair and vice chair.
Yeah,
roles, so.
we'll have an election next meeting.
I will miss next meeting. so.
And then you have. It sounds like you're gonna be elected then.
I'll be out of town, I'm pretty sure.
I actually think I'm gonna be out of town that next meeting.
You know what happens if you don't go to the meeting, you get elected.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the difference.
You better.
Well, and that's one of the, I don't know if you said that, one of the considerations is your attendance, because I mean, if you haven't noticed, a lot of our goals and our stuff are very directed at this committee, so like, the fact that you didn't meet last month sucks, and I don't know that happens, but if we can have a consistent quorum and meet, that's definitely important. Just don't want you to be chair, but if you're not gonna be here.
Yeah.
it's not gonna help.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so Jessica, are you gonna be here next month?
I can, it's gonna be a lot of meetings, but yeah, I can. Wait, it's the 22nd, right?
We meet on the
On
23rd.
the 23rd, yeah.
Yeah, that was the issue last month is we didn't have a chair or a vice chair to
Right,
run the meeting.
How many members are, that are not alternates, how many are full?
We have seven full members and 2 alternates.
Okay.
And the term is through the end of the calendar year, correct?
For
A
chair, or-
regular term of a member.
yeah, the regular term is the calendar year.
I think it extends until the council appoints a replacement though, right?
Yeah,
Like, my planning board term expired 2024, for example, but I was able to continue serving.
until there was a
Until-
replacement.
I was replaced by myself, but like they had voted me in for 2025 until I started, it's kind of
Okay.
weird how that works, but.
Yeah, you can continue. I don't know that you're necessarily obligated to continue, if you're planning to leave. For example, Marla, had decided, well, had stepped down / turned out. It was a gray area, but she wasn't planning to continue anyway. But I don't think that she would have continued coming had we met in January. Even though she hadn't been officially, her spot hadn't been
Got it.
reappointed yet.
Okay. Good, we're all good with that?
So it's in current commissioner on Zoom or here, that is not vice chair.
Or who is not here.
Yes.
Well-
And express any, just look into the others.
This is the beginning of that
Okay.
conversation because we haven't had that conversation
Okay.
yet, so I didn't want to put anybody on the spot in this meeting. But it's up, both positions are up.
Wonder if Pete would be interested too.
Pete was chair forever, so I'm gonna think now that he's been able to not be chair, he's enjoying that. So
Yeah.
I don't think
Well,
that,
and I think Pete is terming out.
He
So the
is, yeah.
one thing I will note is. You saw on planning board, let's
Yeah.
not make that mistake. They did a chair and a vice chair who are both timing out the following year.
Oh.
It's not very helpful to a committee
Yeah.
if you're right. I mean, and so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think it might have been before you came in that I went through who's terming out,
Yeah.
well, which is
perfect.
Pete.
Yeah.
Who is Pete, I guess.
Well, we gotta convince Pete to apply.
There you go.
All right, so
All right.
thank you all, and
Definitely
we're gonna go
doesn't.
to old business 3, 2, 1. So first is planning board submittals.
Let's see, so we just had a new submittal, deadline was this past Monday. And I'm just looking through, we have a lot, but most of them, we have 3 things for the Downs in the Market Center area. You all have seen before, I believe, in the sketch plan. We did finalize the Grondon aggregates, Larrabee Farms, so, that 130 acres will be the first, bucket for our conservation, so that's pretty exciting. That was approved last Wednesday. And just a little, I don't wanna steal Jamie's thunder, but, well, I won't. You tell him.
when we get down to open space, is that true? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you do that. Let's see, planning board's also gonna be looking at some EV ordinance updates, and then we have a subdivision that you all have looked at, the Trestle Way subdivision. There's one plan that you haven't seen, and I want to show you. And it is the first plan that we've been able to use our new wetland setbacks on, and it's, oh, there we go. It's 103 Muzzy, and it's a site that has an existing trailer, sort of concrete gravel yard. And so it's a mixture of existing setbacks that the ordinance, if you recall, lets you make it no worse. So there are some for redevelopment, but then, so this one in particular, the wetlands over here have already been developed, and so they can go closer to those. But this area in the back, it was not developed prior, so we have to meet our current standards. And when they first came in, they didn't have it that way, and so through staff meetings and comments, they've fixed it, and so they're meeting those. So that's pretty exciting to see
Yeah,
it at
good.
work. We also had a meeting today with another, was that today or yesterday? Another group that's looking at a property and similar, and the wetland setback conversation, you know, they did the typical, here's my property, here's what I want to do, plop, plop.
Mhm.
And then after, 30 minutes of, this is what you're gonna have to do. Oh, you mean we should come at this from the opposite way and figure out what we have?
What our
to-
site
So
constraints
it was
are.
actually really helpful.
That's
So it was, it was good.
It's nice to have that there.
Yeah,
So that's all I have.
nice, thank you, okay, tree protection. Tree City USA.
Should we go through goal setting first, since this one is part of the
Okay.
goals? Would that
Okay,
be okay?
yeah, that's good. Goal setting was kind of first on our agenda, Karen, but I wanted to wait until you were
Yeah, I
available, so
apologize.
no worries. I don't know if you'd be able to lead us through town council goals. I know that we have a primary conservation, like we were kind of featured in conservation, sustainability, and resiliency. But as I address town council, we're not where I think we also should be in other goals. So
Share this so Abel can see it.
thank you.
I can,
I have not, I'll just admit that I've not heard council discussion following my address to council about the problems that I had with how the goals were set up. It doesn't look like things were changed based on what I said. But I don't know if there's anything new, or, if you could walk us through this, please, Karen.
Sure, so I mean, if we're gonna look at the conservation, sustainability and resiliency ones, I would say a majority of these are either ones that I came up with, Autumn helped us come up with, or things that we're already working on. And so the first one, and that's why I think that's on the agenda tonight, is the Tree City. We thought that would be a soft little kind of introduction as I talked to Autumn about tree protection. You know that I'm going through that tree protection ordinance, and Autumn kind of talked me down a little. I was like, Karen, maybe we should be a Tree City first. And I think I will comment that I don't think I carried the tree protection ordinance directly over, because in my mind, we were already working on it, and I think that was kind of a shortcoming for me on it, where when we were actively discussing something, it wasn't in my mind to be like, let's put this on here. I'm learning though, that I need to carry things over like that. So that's what's on our agenda tonight. The open space plan, I think that's pretty straightforward. And then I know the Parks and Conservation Land Board has a whole charge that they're gonna be doing at it and doing a workshop with that. I mean, ultimately with an open space plan, there's always things that we can pull out of that. And so I think that's helpful no matter what. Yesterday, tomorrow, 6 months from now, if anyone from the Conservation Commission looks at the open space plan and they're like, we think this is great, bring it forward. I'm not an expert in conservation. You guys are. You're the ones coming to me with these ideas, and I'm just like, these are great. And so I just want to emphasize to keep looking at that and seeing what we could address in that. And obviously the 30 by 30, which we have a model being made to our little counter. I'm looking forward to the.
It's not
hear more about
it's
that.
not gonna be little.
It's not little. Our big counter of acreage. We should have made that a goal.
it's happening, whether it's.
Right, I know. So that's, I mean, obviously the 30 by 30 is something that we carry over. And then I think the vulnerability assessment, same type of situation. We have a plan coming out, which we don't have yet, but we just, once that comes out, we want to make sure that this board and the appropriate boards are looking at it and seeing where it can tie in and trying to help us prioritize. I think, you guys are going to look at certain things and have a better idea of what a priority should be for Scarborough as opposed to maybe other people. Then we have John Anderson calls this the shoop fee, because I have been pushing this since I was elected. There's been indications that this might come to the Conservation Commission. I'm not sure how it would. This is more of a financial kind of decision. Where, I mean, really what we're looking at is, can we pull out all the stuff that, Public Works and engineering does that would qualify under a stormwater management fee? Take that out of the taxpayers' money and start taxing each property individually. And so the reason that I'm doing this is especially because we have a lot of tax exempt properties in Scarborough, which have a lot of impervious area. For example, like, you know, we have all of the Maine Health buildings, and then we have that huge United States Postal Service building. They don't pay any taxes towards our stormwater management, but yet we're plowing all the roads and fixing the roads and things like that. So this is a big thing that we're working on, and I believe Angela has something in the budget this year for it. So I think
left it in, I was looking, I didn't see that.
he knows you better. He doesn't want to have that argument with me. But so that's what that is. You know, I think someone had said maybe it would come to this committee. I mean, I guess you could emphasize why you need stormwater management, but I don't personally know. I think it's more of a financial decision. Establish the Sustainability Reserve Fund. That's actually a check mark. We already did that, so that's exciting. And so I don't know if you know what that is, but we're just going to start designating some certain funds to go into a reserve fund. And that reserve fund will be specifically used to implement sustainable practices on Scarborough town-owned properties.
And that's
so-
also a line item in engineering budget this year too, which, so we'll see what happens. with
Yeah,
that,
the
but
line item, like an initial funding?
Yeah.
Yes, because we at the meeting, we talked about, I mean, Don Cushing had thrown out $25,000. It seemed like people were okay with that. And that the reason behind that was for matching. I think at first you guys were like, oh, I don't know how much. And we're like, well, if you want to get matching, let's get some money in there, right? And I mean, it also sends a great message, I think, just locally, like, you know, to the other communities and to everyone in Scarborough, you know, we care about sustainable practices and we're actually investing in them. So that's done. That's great. I'm great. I can't wait to see kind of what we use those funds for.
Sustainability Committee already has ideas.
Oh, that's why it's gonna be great. Explore the Lone Pec Inc. development standards in our zoning design. So I think that's just kind of bringing along the work that we've already been doing with this committee. And so I think, I don't know.
So we do have a deadline right now because of our MS4 permit that we have to have a low impact development ordinance in place by November. So we're kind of working towards that, but just as Autumn had just mentioned, sitting down with a developer who just like, I have a site, I'm gonna put these buildings and parking, and then looking at it, it's really goes back to, once we have the LID also in place, it's really about looking at the site and what makes sense on the site. And so I think you're gonna see more of that. And so the more we can train them, developers, to be like, okay, and actually they walked away pretty happy, still saying, oh, I can fit it on there. I just have to think about where I'm placing things, like exactly. Okay.
The room got like so much brighter after that conversation. when
And
the lights went out.
LID could be something similar. There's gonna be things and we're gonna get pushed back from probably development, but at the end of the day, it's, you can still do what you wanna do. It's just, you know, think of it different. You have to come at it by looking at what that site can contain rather than I'm just gonna force, this is how the site's gonna look, right? And so LID is essentially that. It's actually mimicking the hydrology and the natural terrain and trying to work with what we have. And so I think that's gonna be the key. And this committee, I think, would be extremely helpful in just kind of beating that drum and saying, it's working with our wetland protections, it's working with this and it's that, and it's development still's coming and they're still getting what they need. So I think it's having that voice from this group too, and so we'll keep you kind of
And there's
updated in the loop.
Yeah, there's a link to the tree work as well. I think, so that.
Oh, preserving trees on a site.
Preserving trees on a
Yes,
site
Yes,
and
that
not
could be part of the low impact, yeah.
leveling everything. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yep, exactly.
So
So there
this-
might be another way to come at the tree protection.
Okay.
through
Yeah.
low
And
impact
a question about the tree city, because when I think of tree cities, it's usually these sort of standard species that are, as the gentleman who was here before, you know, Bradford pears or something like that. So how does this dovetail with tree protection versus just planting a whole
Right.
bunch of species of trees that aren't
We have a
particularly.
list.
We have a
Chris.
list.
Yeah, we have a list of trees that are allowed in Scarborough, so,
That this
and,
commission, that Kathleen helped.
yeah,
us.
Kathleen did a lot of work on
Yeah.
that, but I will say in terms of Tree City, and I think how the town would approach it is we would prioritize natives above anything else, so yeah, there will be no Bradford there.
Okay,
With the LID, with the LID standards, is there wiggle room? Are you getting handed down standards?
We are, but with everything, it's gray, so it's kind of like looking at it, we will be given some standards that might
Basically the
be-
minimum.
Or it could be conceptual, like reduce impervious cover, right?
Lovely,
So that's our mandate. How do we do that?
Stormwater management.
It's gonna be lots of different ways that we interpret that. And so I think that's where the pushback might come in, but it's really, we can kind of lead that conversation by saying, here's the mechanisms we can put in
Mhm.
and get some feedback from.
And where's that being mandated?
So we have a stormwater, permit, which is a federal permit through EPA, which is managed through DEP. But it's, that we annually report out to DEP what we've been, so they set that kind of mandate, these different things that have to happen each year. And every 5 years, we get a new permit that says new requirements. So we did.
Low impact?
No, low impact is one of the requirements in this current permit. And it has, so they set deadlines for certain things. We'll start, I'm assuming you guys already talked about stream protection.
We did already talk about stream.
That's another thing that's in our MS4 permit that's required for us. And LID is another requirement that all communities that are MS4s, and there's 30 communities in the state of Maine that would all be handed the same information. And so it's gonna look different for us than it does for Saco, than it does for Gorham. And to like my point is something as nebulous as reduce impervious cover, we might have a different way of looking at it than say Gorham. But we are all kind of talking and working together, so there should be just little nuances between the communities, I would think. But there could be, but so the developers are dealing with it statewide. It's not a
Despite what they
Scarborough
tell
thing.
us.
Exactly.
It's not a Scarborough thing, so
Yeah,
that's
business is
one
gonna
thing.
die.
And there are places where being more defined with is a place that maybe this commission can help with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Some guidelines.
and then a question on the stormwater management fee, it would be used to fund, better improvements in infrastructure and stormwater, what would it be?
It will be used towards like the operating budget to make like for like public works.
Okay,
And then also any type of improvements that they have to do that could be correlated to. So I feel like some of the projects that Angela does, I think could directly be, you could use some of those funds.
because
for
I
it.
actually think this is pretty important for conservation, because so much of, when you have a massive rain event, it really all flows into the marsh, and you see directly the impact. of the
Yeah,
marsh.
it's
very
really
important.
shifting, it's shifting the cost from the
Right.
taxpayer, from your real estate tax bill to a fee. Where residents hate fees, but ultimately, if what we're trying to say is if we can hit up these, it's based on impervious area.
Correct.
So like,
Okay.
if Maine Health is all impervious area, I mean, their
Their
fee's gonna be
impact
pretty
is much
high.
high.
And we've never had that
Right.
contribution before.
Right.
It's just something we're gonna explore, but Angela, part of the budget request that comes through is Angela's asking for an impervious area study. Which is the first step of
Okay.
basically doing it. You basically need to determine how much impervious area each property has, and then you can see how much you can make the fee to then cover the cost. I'm obsessed with that. The last one was, I think you guys were all here, was Pete's suggestion, was the community rating system. I mean, it's something that I'd never heard of, but I really feel like it would be something that would be very beneficial to our residents, and I think it's worth exploring. I don't know if there'd be another committee, and I would love your opinion on what you think this committee would want to take up first, second, third, or if you think another committee would do. Again, that's something that I feel like would fall to this committee directly, is exploring kind of what those standards are, where we are, if we've met certain ones, little things we could do. And so that's something that I think eventually we would like to explore. So those are those.
I think the outcomes in terms of CRS, the outcomes from the vulnerability assessment will really help us move that process
Nice. Yeah.
along, because a lot of it is identifying your vulnerabilities, and then reviewing ordinances to reduce, your vulnerabilities, and that will help towards, being a part of the CRS program.
The only other, if you want to scroll down to the growth, I don't remember what's under there. It just makes me want to comment on something though.
Sorry about that.
I'm on the appointments committee. I tried hard to put someone from the environmental background on the Housing Alliance this year and I failed. I'm not quite sure there's anyone in the Housing Alliance who has any sort of environmental considerations when these type of things come through. And so I think there's a lot of conversations about workforce housing and things like that. Actually, I guess none of these goals really talk to one of my concerns is we have a South Portland Housing Authority applied for a contract zone in southern Maine, Route 1, I mean Scarborough, where the flea market is. So I don't know if you guys know where the flea market is.
Oh, yes, I
And it's
actually
been-
wanted to tell them about that and totally lost that, because
Oh.
they changed the name on me and it was.
Well, I do not support it. I do not like the location for traffic wise, but also I think I'm curious if you guys, I don't know if it goes to planning board eventually.
No, it goes to planning board in April.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
Oh,
and they have to meet our wetland setbacks too.
so I think that's just something I'm keeping my eye on because I've done a lot of, just general perusing about affordable housing, and there seems to be a pattern of maybe sometimes putting it in vulnerable areas. So right now where they're proposing to put it is up along the marsh, and I'm not quite sure what that property looks like, how far back they're looking to go, what that looks like. I just generally, I wish I would love to have someone environmentally just kind of paying attention to assess that project. I might come back and ask you guys if you have opinions on it, I guess if it's going to planning board.
Let's open it up if you want, because that was completely I'm a little. not
Well, someone actually texted me about it today, and it's.
And
that's something that
it's 578 US Route 1,
It's
and
the-
when I
the flea market,
saw
right?
it,
Yeah.
It's
they
just
named
past the
it
marsh.
Marsh View, and it really just doesn't trigger my brain right.
So is this a contract zone amendment though?
So they're
No.
applying for a contract zone because it's not
Oh.
allowed at all.
Got it.
It's a
Got it.
new, let me pull this up and I'll show
It would
you.
be what apartments, high density housing.
So it would be senior affordable housing up front, and then out back would be workforce housing. Personally, it's a traffic nightmare in that area already. And the public housing across the street, we already have illegal turnings, and actually I was gonna ask the police how many accidents have been there, but. There's a lot of concerns about this
So
one.
this is it. And you can see they do actually, they will be doing some wetland fill in this area and this area. But it's generally close to the street there on Route 1. So the existing in flea market thing, like in this area, and then they have all that weird pavement back here. So they are.
Building though, right?
It's a building, and
It's a
so they'll
building.
be tearing that down and revitalizing that whole section. This is the DOT property. They have storage.
Bridge
area.
maintenance.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
area, you don't
less
really
steel
notice.
and.
And then this is that property wherever there's it's the turnaround property kind of on the
Yeah, that's
hill.
men
It's,
fitness.
yes.
They do
Turnaround.
not,
Yeah.
their driveway is
Um,
a constant turnaround.
Yeah,
They've
it's definitely
been
used for
calling me too.
turnaround. But this is it.
How many units?
So there's 61 up here, and then they are asking for reduction in parking spaces because they generally don't need the 2 to 1, for these senior units. And then they have 36 units back here, and they're more like stacked apartments. Townhomes.
And they did not get access to the traffic light, is that right?
They did not. They are still trying. This property owner has the 4th leg to that.
The subway,
Light,
yeah.
and sorry, I keep doing it in a weird way. She was not willing to sell to them. They tried to buy it outright. They tried to get an access easement. They tried
There's
everything.
2 lights there. There's one's the subway, there's one before that, right? Goes into.
Well, there's one.
This is the one,
yes.
it's a phone shop and a tattoo.
Yeah.
shop. That's the
First
light.
one if you're heading south.
That's the light you're
Mhm.
talking about. Okay,
Mhm.
not the
To
subway.
get
one.
access.
Yeah. Got
Yeah,
it.
so when we had the work, did you come to the workshop that we had with them?
I think I had missed that one.
Yeah, I mean,
was
planning
unable to
board
come that one.
consistently was like, you're gonna have some traffic issues.
Okay,
And I
good.
think the warning was like, you need to get access to that light, so see what happens with that.
Got
And we
it.
do have an island in the middle that we were asking for them to extend it so that people don't do crazy maneuvering around it.
That's
Uh,
what we're seeing right now is because of the authority, housing authority on the other side.
Yeah.
The island is just short enough that
Mhm.
people are doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Got it.
What is it that this commission can interact with on, what are we paying attention to?
I mean, what's there right now? All woods, right? So this is woods leading up to the marsh.
It's not, I don't know where the woodland.
And it's not right up against the marsh, cause
Yeah, it's maybe show it in an aerial.
yeah, I was gonna say if we wanna pull up, cause I'm looking at it, in our
I'll show you.
story map for the vulnerability assessment, and even in our most extreme scenario, they're not at a threat for flooding.
Yeah.
So,
Would their insurance be higher because of that location?
not because of flooding. It should.
So even if you're close to,
Yeah, they're gonna look at the projections,
Right.
and they're high enough so that there's quite a bit of separation between their lot and the 2100 scenario.
So this is the Dolph Way, this is the
Yeah.
main DOT property,
Yeah,
and then this is the parcel right here that they're talking about. And so there, you can see that it does go back, they are extending some, but the rest of this will be probably put into conservation. I don't know if they'd be interested as part of the contract zone deeding it over, or that can definitely happen.
is there a stream in the back to the marsh?
Yeah, that's.
Irish?
That's behind their property,
Right, but I'm just thinking like a bunch of pavement right there is gonna,
but they're not gonna have any pavement right there. The pavement goes to here.
oh,
So it's still gonna be
Yeah.
fairly.
okay,
Yeah, they're leaving all of this
wooded,
area.
okay.
They were showing the trail through it, right? I think that's what you might have seen.
Yeah, I just
On the
didn't get a
plan.
great glimpse
I
at it.
mean, if you guys can find a conservation commission reason to not support it, that'd be great. If you support housing, that's great. And I'm not trying to, I mean,
It's not about whether or not we support
it's
housing.
the location. Personally, as someone who lives in that area, the
And
traffic already is a
we don't-
disaster zone.
We don't opine on traffic control
Right.
unless it has to.
So I think you could
apply.
opine on building this amount of housing next to
A string.
a stream, next to a marsh. If there's studies on the impacts of low-income housing next to vulnerable areas or anything. I think one of the things I came across was there seems to be a pattern of putting vulnerable or low-income housing in vulnerable areas. And that just to me was like, is this a vulnerable area? Was
I
what was-
don't think that would be considered a.
I will
Right,
say
for the flood.
that this location for this population is really well suited because of access to stores and transportation and things. It's walkable,
Services.
there are services
Is it
nearby.
walkable? Is it walkable?
There's some sidewalks.
There's
And
a bus stop.
it's in an area that will be more walkable.
Yeah,
I
right now it
actually-
isn't terribly walkable.
And now, is it too much? Maybe that's
Right.
the fair, maybe there is too much. I know,
You mean the building? is
too many
much.
units, right?
Too many
Yeah,
units.
Too many units, but the zoning in the area of town allows for growth in this area.
But why did they need a contract zone?
So they wanted, the density is really a little conflated here because they have 3 different zoning districts. And it doesn't make sense how to use it all. And so they're actually, if they had the one zoning district, I think it's TBC, one of the numbers, they could use the density. And then there's height, and then I requested them move it closer to the street so they could be further away from the resources in the back.
Right.
To reduce the front setback.
I mean, does it help to have the Conservation Commission reiterate that point? That's it, as far as I can tell, that is really the only thing that we have that's relevant to this project.
Now, in Autumn, when you say this is a perfect location, do you mean like, so all I think about is traffic and I'm like,
Because it's infill and this senior housing is not normally a impact on traffic. Now, the rest of it, the other 36 units, you don't see will have some impact, but the senior housing, what they really started with in the first place, is really probably gonna be pretty minimal.
So that's gonna be a.
It's an
Building.
apartment structure,
Is
yes.
this an opportunity because they're asking for a variance that we can go above and beyond and say the buffers from the parking lot to the marsh? Like, so not meeting bare minimum requirements, but implementing green infrastructure. I see that as an opportunity for this commission to say, well, if the town is providing a variance, we actually are requesting beyond minimum standards.
Being the 25 feet.
Up to 25 feet, do they use bioswales, invest management practices for stormwater management, that sort of things.
Does it meet criteria for LID, low impact development?
We just got it, I haven't reviewed it.
Cause that would be another one. Could
Yeah.
could they
Just
be?
because all
Yeah,
those
but that's
parking
like-
lots are either filling wetlands or next to wetlands, so can we ask for more than the minimum to protect those resources? 'Cause that seems like a role for this commission. Because those are vulnerable resources right next to marsh.
What's the timeline this is on?
This is for review.
I mean, there's
for the-
permeable pavement we could ask for, I mean.
Yeah. that would be-
Well, I think, because it goes to planning board first, I think that's the more
Right,
appropriate.
so planning board will
Board
have
that you wanna say
preliminary
those things,
site
yeah.
plan review on April 22nd. And then it has to go to town council for the contract zone. Public hearing and second reading, and then it goes back to planning board for final site plan. So it takes some time.
I will say we had quite a few back and forth too with the fire department, and so a lot of the configuration of the drive aisles in parking lots were, I don't want to say expanded, but I guess I'll say expanded in order to get a fire truck through there, things like that. So there's a lot of things in play, right? So if you start looking at, to your point, maybe if we're trying to reduce impervious cover, and there's other mechanisms maybe to use that, like
Right.
even like Martin's point, they have regular pavement, but their spaces are porous pavement. You know what I mean? Those type of things, and they have that at the uplands. So maybe you could capture it different ways.
I mean, from what you said, it sounds like they're not using the best practices, or their design is not the best way to minimize the impervious area. So the way they designed it, you're saying, then the fire department came in and said, you have to expand this road and this road and this road.
Well, I think they had to reshuffle things around, and
Yeah.
now with our wetland, but then we came back with also the wetland setbacks, so then things are getting crunched into different areas.
And
So
if they're asking for a reduction in parking, they're already reducing their
impervious.
impervious. If
So
they're
that
saying they
helps,
need
yes.
fewer spaces than we are requiring.
So is this?
Oh, I
really-
thought the reduction was a waiver for the resident parking.
So
You're saying
I,
it's the opposite?
I just want to
They were
say,
using-
so, excuse me, we're like 10 minutes to the end of our agenda time. Don't apologize. And we haven't gotten to the Tree City yet. And so we need to make some decisions. We haven't finished goals. And I'm trying to figure out, like, is our coming to some decision around this to be able to write a memo important in terms of the timeline? Or do we want to talk about Tree City? Where are we all?
I mean, I will say I brought that up for a reason. I had no idea that it was coming to planning board. I guess my closing arguments were if you feel like you have an opinion on this, I invite you to please join the process because we have a town council that in theory, we love affordable housing. We want affordable housing. We need workforce housing. I do not agree with this location. And I'm afraid what's gonna happen is because of our want and need for that housing, we might overlook some of the issues, the concerns that we have with this location. But I think it's too late for you guys to get involved at this point. Maybe when it comes to council, you could.
Think so, because we just got it, so.
Well, I just mean to go like show up to the planning board like with a statement or something.
Well, I mean, Jamie can send it out for you guys to review it, and then if there's, we can highlight some things, and there's just some general concerns.
I think it would be about, what are the environmental concerns that we can
Right,
weigh in on? That's
right.
really all we can weigh in on as this commission, so.
So we do have a basic standing memo that we've used before that we could develop from this, which says, here are conservation principles for development. And here's where we see this isn't meeting that. So we can go through that process offline and then bring it back up. next
Yeah,
time.
I would just caution you, the only thing that it's technically not meeting is they're filling some wetlands.
But they are meeting our
But they're
standard.
meeting our standards for our new setback, so it,
But I think the way you were talking about the pushing up the building out and reducing the setback, it seemed like that could be definitely something.
Reducing the front
The
setback.
front setback that this, choose you're trying to get away from,
they've already done that.
but doesn't have to go through contract zone to get that.
Well, they've already started the contract zone process.
Right, but if this committee supported that so that it doesn't go backwards, is that part of what I think Randy said? They could support.
I don't understand.
Are you, you're saying, I'm trying to say, where are they not meeting the ordinance? They're not meeting, because we're telling them we want to.
Yeah, there's nowhere they're not meeting the ordinance. I guess that's what I'm cautioning
I'm
you
saying,
on, like,
everything-
what
Yeah.
could you, right, it sounds like Karen's has concerns with it, but I don't necessarily know if I have any rules that they're not meeting, right?
And I don't
So
know that the concerns align with the kind of charge of the conservation
That's what
commission.
I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah.
But if, to Jessica's point, if there are other options that you think they should, you suggestions for them to consider through the development, that might be really helpful.
Yes.
Because those could be things that the planning board could actually tack onto and kind of say, oh yeah, I like that idea.
I mean,
I'm thinking maybe as the road, like we asked for more
Mhm.
wildlife crossings, like
Yeah.
they were meeting the letter of the permit. But we have suggestions
Mhm.
above and beyond the letter of the permit.
yeah, I mean, I would say due to the proximity of the marsh, just not increasing runoff volume. So we always talk about flow, but let's think about volume. And is there ways for them to keep their runoff?
Because this isn't in Phillipsbrook though, right?
Mm-mm.
I mean, that's the other thing, across the street is Phillipsbrook watershed, which is an urban impaired stream, which you could, like you said, if you want to go to a different level, then you could have them treat at a different water quality standard, which is just across the street has to meet. You could look at that too, because that would be just how they treated stormwater coming off the site.
Those types of things might be really helpful.
Do you have enough, Jamie, to sort of draft something for us to look at?
We'll find out.
Frankly, this is sort of why I wasn't pleased with the town council goals being what they are, because we have this whole goal that's called growth, housing and land use, and nowhere does it mention conservation, intentions, land use, growth, like where is conservation, in this? And I specifically addressed that, and here we are talking about it, and there are matters that are relevant to what we're doing. Same thing with community engagement and communication, where they've got they've established a council liaison to Crossroads Holding.
So I was informed there was previously a liaison years ago, and current chairs have just stopped acknowledging it and doing it. I was put in my place because I did not support that. I was like, if you want a liaison to the Downs, I want a liaison to the Scarborough Land Trust, is what I said. I literally said that. And I think they were like, oh, this already existed. I don't agree with that. I actually volunteered to be the liaison to the Downs. I'm not joking. And we haven't appointed one yet.
And I thought the whole communication, community engagement is missing, sort of like, why does Scarborough stand out as a leader in environmental concerns and conservation principles in development? We're doing, sort of like, where is that in the whole way that we're communicating why this is important to the town? So that's another area where I thought this, that's missing here. But we've got a lot of pieces that we can really plug in with, and it sounds like action items really are around low impact development, helping to really identify the details, and then the Tree City Initiative.
Well, in the open space.
And open space,
The open
yeah,
space master plan
following on
has
the
a
actions.
lot of things, and that's set to be accepted by council on April 16th. So there's going to be a lot of action items that come out of this. And vulnerability assessment later in the year, so.
Yeah.
What, even if it's not necessarily on the list, there's so many things already on the list that we couldn't get through them all in the next 9 months if we.
Yeah, I would say the fact that supporting open space plan and outcomes of the vulnerability assessment, like while those are a little bit ambiguous right now, there's a large role for this group in both of those efforts
Nice.
What's the timeline on the vulnerability assessment
this summer.
this summer? Okay.
Should wrap up.
Are we okay to move on? I know we haven't identified our priorities, but I think it's a work in progress and we're kind of clear-ish about where we want to be on that. So now we have tree protection and then we definitely want to touch on open space. And nail down the next meeting because we've got a few people who are not going to be here for that. In 4 minutes, go.
Let's see, so I wanted to put this together for, City USA, just a kind of a brain dump, if you will, just information for you all. It's a fairly, I don't say easy, because it's not really that big of a deal. We need about $50,000 a year. You need $2 per capita. You need a tree board. That tree board could be this committee that you can meet, an hour after this meeting or something if you wanted to set up. We need an ordinance, for our own public rights of way and how we, maintain trees. We do probably, I think we would end up wanting to contract with an arborist or company to actually do the work for us and do those things. And then the reason I think that this would be a good step forward before we got into tree preservation, the wetland setbacks were pretty tough, right? And so we got beat up a lot, and I am quite honestly not prepared to get beat up again for at least the next 6 months. I need breaks. I think we all do.
Yeah.
But this is a really like, hey, the town's doing this cool thing. Let's find all our tree people, get
All the other
involved.
towns are doing it.
Yeah, all these other towns are doing it. And then, oh, well, we have you. Let's think about what we, next steps. And other towns have done this too. And can we take these baby steps to get into preservation eventually? 'Cause I
Get
think
signage in the town, yeah.
sign. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
get the
Yeah.
sign.
Get greenwashing, excellent.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, let's do something proactive to get to a step. It's not quite as fast because I think the tree preservation is gonna take 2 years to get through anyway. But I think you could find some allies through something like this. Gather your troops up perhaps a little better and maybe figure out easier ways to go about things. And we also, I'm requesting funding for a trails and sidewalk master plan.
Excellent.
And so that's all on right away, right? And so I envision, so the community services has a parks and facilities plan. One of the top goals was we need more trails. That's kind of recreation and transit. And then transportation committee has a townwide transportation assessment that has all of this, fill the gaps with sidewalks, and we have places to go. We have the Eastern Trail. And then we have this open space plan with all of these beautiful places that we want to conserve and get people to. So the trails plan can really tie it all together, and then having this Tree City USA, we have this way of making sure all those things look the same way and they're kind of planned. We're also working on, we have a project with GP to do the complete streets manual
Traffic calming,
and traffic calming, which will actually identify the different types of streets. So we'll have a rural section and, a Route 1 section. So it really all kind of ties together really nicely, I think. So this was a goal. I think it's an easy win, if long as we can find the right department to do the work.
Does the council need to approve or
Mhm.
say this board exists?
Yes, this would have to be a resolution by council to adopt this. They would have to set aside the funding. There's normally some grant funding available. I keep checking it, and normally it would have already been released, like the meeting and stuff, but
I
it.
have a couple people after the all boards from Sedco, or not Sedco, the chamber, and then I think by local who were like, how can we donate or get involved? So I think that's definitely something that we should consider is like
Private
creating.
individuals?
No, like as like, it's marketing. So it's like,
Mhm.
oh, look at like,
Mhm.
like the chamber just donated 10,000
Oh,
towards
I see.
trees. Like that's it. It'd be
Makes it
great.
look good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious how that would work too. That's something we can.
Yeah,
figure
that's
out.
great. And you could probably come up with ways to have donations
Yeah.
for memorial trees and things like that. We have some of those in Memorial Park, but you could do all sorts of different
And
things.
just to think about sort of how this ties in with tree protection, so then there would be sort of a master plan or, standards for protect, not just planting trees, but protecting existing trees in the future, and that would sort of open.
So we have a landscape, when we redid the landscape standards for site plan for commercial development, I added in, nobody really noticed. I added in, if you want to protect trees, here's how you do it. And so
Okay.
there's some standard notes. It's not required, but here's how you do it. So it
Right.
kind of lays the groundwork. And then this would create an ordinance to how we do our own town's properties. And then the next step would really be to how we want to do that on other.
I've got.
So, and then it's a conversation about commercial development and clear cutting and then residential
Mm.
development. And it's the residential development that scares me the most, really,
Because, yeah,
because it's residential property and we're in the state of Maine.
yeah.
And that one is a little like, ooh, I come from a place that doesn't have a lot of trees, so we have tree preservation. But in Maine, it's just a really different, I won't want to call it threatening, but we got an alarming email from the Maine Forestry when they heard what we were up to.
Yeah, the Maine Forest
we-
Service.
About what?
Our tree preservation discussion, we ruffled their feathers.
Well, what was their
Yeah.
response to the other town?
Well,
that
we
did?
asked that and they
haven't
didn't
responded.
respond to that, so we thought.
Send them my email.
It just kind of. Parents really want it, yeah. It just gives me a call. I know.
Here till November.
I think it was Marlo, was Marlo here in December and even asked like, oh, so if I wanted to,
No,
Like,
it was me.
was it you?
Skowhegan, like, we got trees everywhere. What's wrong with the tree?
You need to be.
Well, and you can here too, as long as you're not in the shoreline zone, so.
So that gave me a little bit of pause, but I think we could, get there and we have plenty of other things that I think we can have the same.
Everyone feel good about this moving forward?
Yes.
Nice. That's good. Anything else?
Thank you for giving us a break from the contentious.
Have a little bit of fun, okay?
Yeah.
That let them feel a little whack 'em later.
I did notice that, in the last town email, the counselor said it was his proudest moment.
Yeah,
The
Bill
passage of
Donovan
yeah.
said that his proudest moment was
Passage
passing
of
wetland
wetlands.
setbacks.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
He fought for that one. There were some counselors that fought really hard for that one, including
Yeah.
Karen.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's go with, let's go to 6 first.
So open space plan, we had a workshop at the beginning of March with the town council to present the open space plan. We are doing a couple small revisions with that based on some of their feedback, including putting more information in there about with the build out analysis, basically what land is left in Scarborough to conserve. That was something that we hadn't done. We know that there's enough for us to meet 30 by 30 if we can develop the resources to do that. But they just wanted the hard and fast numbers. So they're working on that. And so as Autumn mentioned, we're looking at adoption at the April 16th council meeting. And as part of the open space plan and 30 by 30 goal, we are developing a visual kind of representation of 30% of Scarborough, kind of our version of a thermometer, but it's going to be way more artistic and cool. So we are working with our public works. There's someone down there that does metal fabrication, and so he is creating this
Don't give it away.
cool display.
Okay.
That will be also unveiled on the 16th, and it will be our way of kind of visually
Sweet.
tracking the land that is.
Where will this be? Is that a secret?
It's gonna be outside council chambers.
Okay.
Nice.
You
And
know where
it's-
that glass case
Yeah.
is, that's gonna go away.
Autumn made sure it was on wheels so it can actually be wheeled into council chambers because we will have ceremonial
Yeah.
I don't even know how to say it,
Adding,
but
adding whatever sand.
adding, there you
Yeah.
go, you actually said, yeah, so
Yeah.
ceremonial adding of the sand that represents the acreage of land that is going to go towards 30 by 30.
Awesome.
So the first addition will be the 130 acres from Larrabee Farm that that
Awesome.
the town council recently accepted.
See, communication.
So,
Nice.
yeah.
That's cool.
So that'll
And
be.
thank you, Maggie, again for
Oh,
being
sure. Yeah.
our
It's very
representative on the
interesting.
open space plan committee. Ad hoc committee, yeah.
And while I have the floor, I'll talk vulnerability assessment also. So we did just release the story map for the vulnerability assessment. I mentioned that I was
Yeah.
looking at it
Cool.
while we were talking about the South Portland Housing Authority site. And so that was, the link went out in the most recent newsletter, and I'll share it with this group specifically after probably tomorrow. Because it's getting
Look
late.
at the sliders.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's the interactive story maps, basically kind of giving some background and then looking at showing representations of our flood risks now and then under 10 different scenarios, which we may encounter between now and 2100. And so
For whoever's.
yeah, for whoever's still around. So right now it's just looking at our coastal flood risk and it outlines our at-risk infrastructure and things like that. And then it will be updated one more time before we wrap up with adaptation strategies. So the working group that is kind of guiding this work is working with our consultant to come up with those adaptation strategies, review those adaptation strategies. We meet again next week, so we can start reviewing those more in depth. But this whole thing is set to wrap up over the summer.
Nice, good work. You want to say anything about sustainability committee?
Sustainability committee, so they just did kind of their prioritization. They met this morning, so we did mention sustainability reserve account was funded or created, I should say, and hopefully through the fiscal year 26 budget process, it will get some seed money included in there, and then it's also going to be funded through EV charging in lieu fees. So if someone can't meet the EV charging ordinance requirements, they can pay an in lieu fee. It will go into that fund. And then also a portion of annual electrical fees if we generate more revenue than projected for electrical fees. The sustainability reserve account will get a portion of those excess revenues. And it'll go towards, as Karen mentioned, match for grant funding, and then other kind of sustainable projects that may need an initial influx of funding. And so they are seriously looking at a municipal solar array, so that they're just starting the process for that, looking into what options there may be, but that may be coming to town council for a request if we need to kind of hire a consultant to assist with that. But that will be a super cool project if Scarborough has its own solar array to offset some of our electricity costs and have renewable energy.
Nice. Transportation committee. So,
That's y'all.
Yeah, I can speak to that. We had a meeting this week. We had a presentation from Greater Portland Metro. And they talked about a pilot program they're doing in Falmouth, which is called Metro Connect, which is basically on-demand service, sort of like a super Uber. It's a 9-passenger van that you can schedule for a pickup and to get back to, say, mainline bus service. But in Falmouth, they do a lot of just getting to the medical facilities or retail along Route 1, but being able to pick up in certain neighborhoods. There is a limit to, obviously Scarborough is a big location, so is Falmouth. They give a kind of like per bus, here's the area we can serve. It would mean commitment from council to be able to fund eventually, but what they're doing in Falmouth, they're kind of want to present, they presented to transportation, they will be presenting to council on April 16th, a workshop to kind of look at, could this work for Scarborough? And it would, it was well received. We also had joined us was, the Age Friendly Committee, through the Community Services Department. So there's a lot of, I think, momentum happening. Oh, I was mentioning the funding piece because John Anderson is the liaison. A lot of finance, since we were just, and he kind of held off because council, I'm sure that's what we get into, like really the nitty gritty of that type of thing. But there is specifically in Transit's budget from the federal money they get, they have to actually specify like a 12% of it goes to expanding their service. So they are required to expand their service. And so that money, there's already set asides, as well as through other pots of money they have that's could fund, say, a pilot project like Falmouth is for like 3 to 5 years before, and you get kind of that ridership and the ownership from the town before there would be any kind of fiscal note attached to it. And just see if it's successful or not. And maybe it's not, and it goes away and there's no harm, no foul, or it grows momentum. And I think that's where we're getting from the age friendly group is they are very adamant. They want to be able to get to the library, and for them to walk from Pat's Pizza to the library does not make sense for the senior community that's not driving. What they're finding in Falmouth is mostly the senior group, but also they're seeing a large influx for school age kids. And so they have it from their school campus to the retail corridor is a pretty constant route. And so it's being used by those kind of groups. And it seems to be successful at this point. So we'll see how that goes. Along with that, at council workshop will be a Vision Zero presentation from GPCOG. The Transportation Committee will be putting out probably in May back to council, a resolution, a Vision Zero resolution, which is basically zero deaths or fatalities or significant injuries due to like on our roadways, which includes pedestrians, bicycles, motorists. And so they've been anxiously waiting to kind of push this through and now presenting to council. So there's some background before it just comes in front of them. But they're pretty excited about kind of moving that through. That kind of ties back into the complete streets and traffic calming work that we're working on with transportation. And so they're like, this is the catalyst for it and how we kind of work on strategies. So we are eliminating those. Because we do have some areas in town where we have pedestrians getting hit, and it's staggering to see the percentage of when you get hit by a vehicle, it's your percentage of survival is pretty low depending on the speeds. And so that's been a very focused effort by this group. So
Thank you. These buses or vans, do they have bike racks on the front or the back?
that's a good question. They did talk a lot about ADA accessibility, but
Oh.
not about bike racks.
That'd
But
be pretty cool.
that would be, it's they showed a picture. It's just one of the, like I said, a 9-10 passenger van. But it seems like anything could be equipped with a bike rack on the front or back.
Thank you. Okay, PCLB.
So next Thursday, we're having a workshop with Jamie, and all are invited to incorporate the open space plan into the evaluation process for land bond.
Nice.
And I think that there is interest from the PCLB folks to have a joint meeting with the Conservation Commission to understand how the groups work together to implement the open space plan. What activities each entity does and where there might be some common activities that can be undertaken to move things forward. So how do we best work together as various committees to best implement the open space plan? As part of that, I think we'll also have a similar process for the vulnerability assessment when that's done, but we're gonna work with the plans as they move forward. And hopefully on Wednesday, we'll also be presenting to town council the recommendation for 49 Grant Road, which is 60-acre conservation easement. Okay, so we are on the agenda for next Wednesday. for 60-acre conservation easement at 49 Grant Road, which is the Beaver Brook Conservation Area, which will. I'm looking at Andrew because it's their project. So if you want to know more, it will be 92 acres of contiguous, protected land in a 358-acre undeveloped block.
I'd have to double.
He's gonna look at you.
So it's an important area, will move us forward. It will pour some sand in that, new piece, but I think it's exciting to be moving forward with some new ways for conservation, not new ways, that's the wrong term, but it's having conservation easements that are protecting water resources and habitat is part of the tapestry of open space and Scarborough. And so bringing all of this to bear and showing how the open space plan can be implemented.
So one quick question is, who does Sue Hamill represent?
Sue Hamel.
Herself.
Taxpayers group?
She's just a resident.
All of the emails I get from her are just signed by Sue.
Oh, okay, so she's herself, okay.
They don't,
I didn't know, I just didn't
she's,
know.
well, I think she's associated with with the taxpayer group, but I don't, like when they contact us, it's not the group. It's just.
Individual.
Okay.
I just, oh, go ahead.
So support is helpful because there was some pushback against the land bond, and I think that there could be a new strategy to, since the land bond passed, opposing spending.
Individual projects.
Individual projects, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if anyone is free on that Wednesday and wants to give a public comment, I think in support of conservation easements and just putting more, I think that would be great.
April 12th, you said?
No, it's the third, it's Wednesday.
April 3rd.
Oh, sorry, the third is
The second.
the second. The second is the town council meeting. The third is the workshop on the open space plan.
So, I think it's great to come back and just say, look how far we've come, where, there was a time where a consulting group came into this committee a couple of years ago and said, if you want to do an exchange, what land do you want to pick? And we didn't have priorities then. And so now it's just so exciting that we've gone through the open space planning work that's funded, the plan is in place, and now we're starting to make really strategic decisions out of that. So yay for us and the work that we've done and the sort of the long haul of this, and now it's coming to fruition. So just keep, patting ourselves on the back to say it takes a while, but it comes to play, and we're realizing the benefit of that. We don't have an education committee report. So best for last, the town council update.
I feel like you just got a big update from them. I'm unaware of I had no idea that that's what our workshops are. It's so funny. The committees find out about workshops before we do. Unless we really don't. I think, I touched on the housing. There is rumors of a affordable housing workshop. I
There's
don't
a
know.
workshop about that.
Oh, is there one?
Again, I wanted to make sure I went to it.
About what? I don't know.
I think it's about trying to figure out what it means, right? If it's affordable housing, like I think the council has to figure out what that means.
Right.
And I think that's about the workshop.
So I think we have that going on. I mean, really, we have the budget, so I'm the finance committee. I would say if there's anything in the budget, like I just said that I know that Angela has the request for the impervious area study. If there's something that I think you guys might want to help support, or I think maybe people are waffling on, I might ask you guys to be like, hey, can I get like an email or some support, or what are your thoughts? Sometimes some of the requests that come from staff, I think some councils are like, that's 200,000, I'm just gonna get rid of it because that's a number, not like what it serves for us. But for me, the budget is gonna be all we're doing for the next the next 2 months. And I think we got the updates on all the other stuff that we're doing.
Nice, thank you. Do we keep the date of the next meeting? I'm not gonna be here, and I'm sorry to miss it.
Oh, if a different date would be more convenient for others, we can look at
If that's okay, y'all.
changing it.
Yeah, I can look at my calendar.
It's my birthday anyway. I'd love to spend it with you all, but I'm not gonna be in town and I'm gonna be out.
As it should be.
How about the 30th? April has a.
Oh, a fifth Wednesday?
Mhm.
Ooh,
Oh, there you go.
Isn't that convenient?
that is convenient. Oh, it's Angela's birthday.
Oh.
We can excuse.
Yeah, you could have
Angela.
asked.
Angela doesn't have to be here.
I have to do town council presentations on my birthday.
I can do the 30th.
I've spent many a birthday with you people. You might not realize it, but I have.
How's that? How's that for you, Abel? 30,
April 30th?
Yeah, I think that would work. Thanks.
Thank you all.
I'm still out of town, but I'm going to. So.
And while we're just looking ahead, I will say now that we will not be meeting in June because I am going, Autumn and I are both on vacation.
Yay.
June meetings.
People need
For you.
vacations.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we have April and May and then a break in June. Thank you all. Adjourn, yes?
Yeah, sure.
All right, great. Thank you all.
You all on the 30th.